My dear friends, there's a sort of poem making the rounds in education circles called Placing the Blame. It goes like this. College professor. Such rawness in a student is a shame. Lack of discipline in the high school is to blame. High school teacher. Good heavens, what crudity! The boy's a fool. The fault, of course, is in the elementary school. Intermediate teacher. From such discipline may I be spared. They send them up to me unprepared. Primary teacher. Such lack of training never did I see. What kind of a woman must the mother be? Mother. Poor helpless child, he's not to blame. His father's people are just the same. The great Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen put the blame for youth's waywardness today on Professor Let 'em Be Brats, L-E-T-E-M, capital B-R-A-T-S. For 2 generations, Professor Let 'em Be Brats has promoted a laissez-faire attitude toward child discipline, an anything-goes philosophy. His theory has 3 points. First, Professor Let 'em Be Brats says you must never correct a child when he is wrong, because if you tell a child he is wrong, he may develop a guilt complex. Professor Let 'em Be Brats, of course, has no children of his own, but he has written books on how to bring up children. His greatest contribution to the domestic and academic world is the new idea that a child should never be corrected. Professor Let 'em Be Brats has a dog, but he will not allow that dog to jump all over the furniture, nor allow it to bring bones into the house. He has even insisted that the dog be housebroken, but not children. He advocates they should be let run wild. Professor Let 'em Be Brats insists on disciplining a dog, but not a child. But there you have it. Secondly, Professor Let 'em Be Brats says every psychological complex is cured by a physiological outlet. In plain English, repression is always wrong and expression is always right. If repression is always wrong, we wonder why Professor Let 'em Be Brats does not condemn women for dieting. Thirdly, Professor Let 'em Be Brats says, never scold or reprimand or spank a child. But someone else has said that 2 modern inventions are to blame for what is happening to our youth today, the gas burner and the electric razor. The gas burner because it got rid of the woodshed, and the electric razor because it got rid of the razor strap. The result of Professor Let 'em Be Brats' hands-off theory has been to produce brats. Now a brat is a smart boy who does not smart where he ought to smart, and so a boy who is always on his pest behavior. That's what Archbishop Sheen thinks about Professor Let 'em Be Brats' theory. He puts the blame for modern youth's waywardness on the tolerant, good professor's theory. Of course, Archbishop Sheen is not a doctor of pediatrics. What does a professor of psychology, child psychology, think of Professor Let 'em Be Brat's theory? Well, one such child psychologist, a professor at the University of Southern California, wrote an entire book on what he thought about Professor Let 'em Be Brat's anything goes theory. The professor is Dr. James Dobson. His book is Dare to Discipline, which has sold nearly 1 million copies. And in this book he wrote, and I quote, "Permissiveness has not just been a failure, it's been a disaster. The irreverence, lack of respect, vandalism, irresponsibility, and so on are evidences. The problem both parents and educators face is, how can we demonstrate to children we love them and at the same time control their actions so as not to inhibit their emotional development? To seek a solution, we might ask, what is discipline? What is love? Are these two incompatible? Dobson, in his book, shows permissiveness doesn't work, and that firm control is the key to love. Discipline and love are not antithetical. One is the function of the other. Dobson quotes Dr. William Glasser, the father of reality therapy, on this matter of discipline and love. Glasser draws a distinction between discipline and punishment. Discipline is directed at the objectionable behavior of a child, whereas punishment is directed at the child. Discipline is something done for the child. Punishment is something done to the child, and therefore punishment is deeply resented by the child, for it is usually an expression of anger and hostility. Whereas discipline, on the other hand, is not resented because it is usually an expression of love. I love you too much to let you behave like that. For a small child, an illustration can carry this message out very clearly. And this is the illustration. I knew of a little birdie who was in his nest with his mommy. The mommy bird went off to find some worms to eat, and she told the little bird not to get out of the nest while she was gone. But the little bird didn't mind her, and he jumped out of the nest and fell to the ground, where a big cat got him. When I tell you to mind me, it is because I know what is best for you, just as the mother bird did with the little birdie. When I tell you to stay in the front yard, it's because I don't want you to run in the street and get hit by a car. I love you, and I don't want anything to happen to you. If you don't mind me, I'll have to spank you to help you remember how important it is. Do you understand? In this matter of discipline, another important distinction must be made between acts of childish irresponsibility and willful, haughty disobedience. For instance, Johnny loses his bicycle, or he's acting silly and falls on the table and breaks expensive china cups and other trinkets, or he leaves Dad's expensive power saw out in the rain. These are acts of childish irresponsibility and should be handled as such. Perhaps parents could have the child work to pay for the losses, depending on the age and maturity of the child, of course. However, these examples do not constitute direct challenges to authority. They do not spring from willful, haughty disobedience. Only when a child, 10 years or less, expresses a defiant, "I will not," or "you shut up," when he tries this kind of stiff-necked rebellion, nose-to-nose confrontation, then that is the time. Not to yell, plead, or make empty threats, not to send him to his room to pout, nor to wait till poor old tired dad plods home from work to handle the situation, but to act right then and there and apply the Board of Education to the seat of learning. This is based on Thorndike's law of reinforcement, and this is the law. Behavior which achieves desirable consequences will recur. If it achieves undesirable consequences, it will not recur. In a nutshell, discipline can and should be exercised as an expression of love. Love is incomplete unless discipline is present. Can we find evidence in the Word of God to back up this philosophy of Dr. Dobson? Well, listen to what the author of the Epistle to the Hebrews wrote in the 12th chapter. "My sons, do not disdain the discipline of the Lord, nor lose heart when he reproves you. For whom the Lord loves, he disciplines. He scourges every son he receives. Trials as the discipline of God, who deals with you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? At the time it is administered, all discipline seems a cause for grief and not for joy. But later it brings forth the fruit of peace and justice to those who are trained in its school. So strengthen your drooping hands and your weak knees. Make straight the paths you walk on, that your halting limbs may not be dislocated." The author of Hebrews wrote that passage to encourage Christians to bear trouble and affliction cheerfully when it comes to them, because these things are sent as discipline from God. Namely, they spring from his love and they aim at our good. Similarly, parents too, because of love, must at times discipline their children. Lincoln used to say, "Rivers are so crooked because they follow the path of least resistance." To let a child always have its way is to form a wayward child. We are all blind until we see that in the human plan nothing's worth the making if it doesn't make the man. Why build these cities glorious if man unbuilded goes? In vain we build our cities unless the builder also grows. Discipline with love is the builder of man. God be with you every day and in every way.